I'm sad now. I don't know what happened. It just totally cut out, and I'm gonna get in trouble for not being able to save that video. I'm really sorry, everyone. I hope some of you come back. Oops. So, yay, people are coming back. Unfortunately, that first part won't be available for longer. I guess that's kind of cool. Y'all got exclusive content. I'm going to jump back in. I'm going to put my handle and stuff back in. Hi, you're back. Thank you for coming back. I know that's annoying. I don't know exactly what happened. So, Sussana L. Harris and PhD Balance. Yeah, so I'm sorry I cut out. You know, I guess we're all in this together. But this is a good point that anytime you're doing any sort of public speaking, whether it's behind balance, whether it's behind a screen or in public, things are going to go wrong, and to just kind of laugh it over and be like, well, that's not what I wanted. Let's see, can I post that now? Thank you. Okay, yes, it's not any of you, and it is, let's see, it is definitely awkward when that happens, but the cool thing is that, yeah, I don't know what's happening. Hopefully I can figure out how to pin this thing, but whatever. So my dogs heard me yelling out of frustration, and so this is Hermes. You get to meet Hermes. Hi, Herm. Hi, Herm. He's a weirdo. And then here is Athena. Yeah. Okay, well, I guess that's a benefit, is that y'all get to meet my dogs. Sorry, the rest of that video won't be around. Anyway, so just a quick reintroduction. My name is Sussana Harris. Handle is Sussana L. Harris. And the other thing that I manage is PhD_balance. That is a collaborative community designed to empower graduate students and other academics to, you know, kind of take responsibility for and take ownership for their own balance and well-being, and just kind of learning on that journey. I am so there with you. I crash out still. I make poor choices. We're just figuring it out together. So I'm glad you guys, or y'all, got to see my doggies. Just a reminder, this is a Q&A. You're allowed to ask me any questions. I am chilling in my room, hanging out in my workout clothes, which later I am going to go. I don't think I have kickboxing today. I think I have just like a general workout. I've been trying to take better care of my body, and just realizing that it makes me feel a lot better. So yeah, if y'all would in the comments let me know, like, what do you do to feel good? What do you know, this could be crafts, this could be going for a walk, it could be reading, watching TV. All of these things are self-care, working out, cooking. I love cooking. I love cooking so much. I haven't gotten to do a lot of it, and I think, you know, that's again part of that balance, that I know that cooking and taking care of myself is absolutely essential. It's still a struggle, and I have a lot of an easier time to cook for other people, so that's a way that I bond with friends and things, is I ask them to come over and cook with me or hang out with me while I'm cooking and just share a meal, and it's a lot easier for me to take care of myself when I'm taking care of others. Let's say Sarah Kuda. I just love your name. It's like Barracuda, but Sarah, and I probably don't need to tell everyone that, but I think it's awesome. Go gymnastics and rock climbing. I have done indoor rock climbing. I don't know if anyone here has done outdoor rock climbing. I can't tag it. That I love doing rock climbing inside. I think it's a really cool way to get a little bit of that adrenaline boost. Ugh, I'm using my tablet for this for the first time. I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have done that, but my phone sometimes cuts out too. Anyway, I love rock climbing. It's a cool little adrenaline burst, and makes me feel really good. Gymnastics. If you want to go to my page and see my attempt at a handstand, I think you will see why I do not do gymnastics. The only place I do something like it is in like a pool where I can do front and back somersaults. I draw on the wall, so like doing some painting and things like that. That's so cool. I've done those kind of paint by numbers, or you know, you follow along with someone else painting, and some of it's turned out okay. Definitely my form of artwork and self-expression is writing, and is actually food. I consider food to be my kind of art, where I can kind of see where it's going, I can have an idea, and I can also just sort of follow the inspiration that happens. Okay, so depression sometimes gives days that you can't do anything. Do you ever get those? Oh my gosh. Oh, I so get those days. It's better now. I'm on 2 types of medication. I'm on sertraline or Zoloft, which helps me to kind of boost up my my mood and also bring down my anxiety. And then I'm also on something called lamotrigine or Lamictal, which helps to keep me in more of a stable mood. In the past, I used to have what were called my Fridays, and every Friday evening I would totally crash out and I couldn't move and I just felt awful, and I'd wake up on Saturday and kind of recover. So I would say it can get a lot better. I would say that you deserve it for yourself to give you kind of that space and that trust that maybe things could be a little bit better, but at the same time respecting that you might still have those days. Even with all the work I do, I still have those days where I feel like kind of a slug of a human, and I just accept it, or I try to. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't, and I'm not going to lie to you, and it's kind of scary when it happens, because it's those feelings of, is this like forever now? Am I just going to be a puddle? I'm not. I get back to it. It's okay, but I definitely feel you. I definitely have those days, and, I see you. I think, we're in this together for sure. I cook pastry essentially and listen to music. So I love baking. Has anyone else seen British Bake Off? Great British Bake Off? I think it's called something else in actual UK. But I love baking. I am not as good at it as cooking. I often get really scared that I'm going to bake something that's going to be awful. And so a lot of times if I'm making like a pie, I'll make a tiny pie in like a little ramekin so that I can try it before I bring a whole pie to something, which maybe getting more experience in that would help. Hey, it's Barracuda. I'm on those same meds too. I have bipolar. So this is something I've learned about myself recently, is that I have depression, but it kind of swings towards the spectrum of bipolar. I've definitely had more of those manic episodes. And it's been a weird thing to kind of accept, right? I don't know, chemicals in my brain sometimes don't work right. If I don't need glasses, I can prove it. I don't have contacts. I don't need glasses, but if I did, I would get glasses and it would help me see. Just because I can't see a really easy way to, measure mental health stuff doesn't mean it's not real, and doesn't mean that I don't need those medications. Anyone who knows me personally, anyone who's seen me off the medication would say, please don't go off the medication. I'm a much better human when I'm medicated, when I'm seeing my therapist. And I wouldn't ever tell someone to take off their glasses just to give it a try, just because I could get by with it, just because maybe they could squint. The same way that I would hope that people don't tell others to not take medication, to not take care of themselves. Okay, dog walks and eating food. Dog walk, that's my favorite things. Also, Life of Learning always tags me in these adorable dog photos and videos, and if you ever... I figured out how to pin a comment. Can I go up and find my comment? If you ever have dog videos or things like that that you think I would like, definitely tag me in it. Let's see. I pinned it. Yeah. So y'all can see for a second here too, I'm on social media a lot, and I'm also a little bit ignorant about some of it. Okay, so let's scroll back down and see what all of you are saying. I don't know how to do this. Silly, silly, silly. Okay. So yeah, anyway, Life of Learning. I got, just like when you tag me, I get totally distracted. Definitely agree with exercise or just moving helps so much to feel better. Yeah, and shout out to people who are like me, that you know that you're going to feel better when you do yoga or you work out, and then some days you just can't do it. Respect that, honor it, love it. You would do the same for a friend and say, that's okay, maybe tomorrow. Life after the PhD. How would you convey your mental health struggles to help someone understand who hasn't experienced it? Love that question. So let's use another analogy. I also don't have asthma, right? A lot of people do. There's a lot of different versions of asthma. Some people have what's called exercise-induced asthma, where when they exercise, they get that tightening of their airways. A lot of times they can use preventative things like inhalers, especially when they know they're going to exercise hard. Well, I know a lot of people who have really chronic, really difficult asthma where they're constantly on medication, and even then they're still struggling. And we don't know what causes asthma. It's really interesting. We don't know the genetics. We don't understand the environmental variables. We have some ideas. We know it can exacerbate it. But we don't know everything about it, but we know it's still an illness. And what I would say is that, kind of like with asthma, a lot of us have had a cold or the flu or like the respiratory flu or even things like bronchitis, and have had to deal with that terrifying feeling of not being able to breathe, of not being able to function in our everyday lives the way we would if we didn't have it. And so we can empathize in that way. But it's important to realize that, when those dark times happen, someone who's not dealing with a mental illness might be able to bounce back faster. The way that if I got a cold, I can bounce back faster than someone with asthma. For me, when bad things happen, it can be really destabilizing. I can work really hard, and it's still going to take a long time to get over that and to deal with it. Same way that someone with asthma might need doctor intervention, might need to go get extra help. And so I would say it, that way, as far as just that respect that you can empathize, you can kind of get an idea, but I also can't imagine what it would be like to live with asthma on a daily basis, and I definitely don't expect anyone else to understand what it feels like to live with mental illness. We're getting real personal with this video, but that's great. I really trust y'all, and I love talking with you. But for instance, when I get my period, my hormones go a little bit weird, and I often get nervous that this is maybe a start of some sort of imbalance, and oftentimes it's not. It's just my body being weird. But I think that's the thing, is with mental illness, you just are kind of always constantly on the alert for, like, what if this is a bad day, or what if it's about to be a bad month? Same way with asthma, you're asking yourself, is this just a little bit of a tricky day, or is this a sign of an episode coming on? The other thing I would say is that, to just, when you do have those difficult times, as someone who doesn't have mental illness, kind of think about, how does this feel, and how would this feel if this was an everyday occurrence? Okay. I had depression too, but the problem that people think is that I'm crazy when they knew about it. Yeah, I feel that. I get people a lot of times who say, well, why do you talk about your mental illness? Aren't you kind of projecting just kind of talking about your instability? Isn't that scary? And it definitely is scary. I definitely still have my own stigma about it. I definitely still feel like, not as valuable as a person than I maybe would if I didn't have these issues. The sound is pretty good. That's good. But I think, so one interesting thing is that PhD students, we know that on the low level, about 25% are going to deal with a real big mental health struggle while in their PhD, to the point where it would qualify as depression or anxiety. And we know that about 70% of them are not going to get treatment for it, which is really frustrating for me, and because it's not their fault, right? It's so hard to get this help. It can be totally prohibitive based on cost, based on time. And what I think is really important is that we realize that number, so 1 in 4 are going to be struggling, and more than half of them are going to be untreated. And I at least try to tell myself that, and I know that with me on medication, I am stronger than I have ever been. When I see my therapist, I see her every other week. I take time out of my day because it's important, because otherwise I will miss time in my day because I'm not productive. That I am valuable. It's hard to remember. I know that sounds funny, but there are definitely days where I feel like I need to make up for who I am. And, I think the other thing too is that I like this phrase, the people that matter don't mind, and the people who mind don't matter. There are so many fantastic humans in the world, and I do my best to surround myself with them, whether in person or even just online with people like all of you. Question mark, is this the mic on your tablet? If not, what equipment? It's just the mic on my tablet. Yeah, it is really great, and that's why I wanted to use it, and I kind of wonder if that's why I cut out, which is a bummer, but I'm really glad that y'all came back and hung out with me. Circe, verb, I always forget, like, can't figure out how to say the verba part, but it's verb with an A. So Circe, trying to find the right med and dealing with side effects can add additional stress too. I was terrified when I switched medications. I knew that something wasn't great, but I was like, who am I going to be now? People want me to be who I am. People like me, or like, what if I turn into somebody who doesn't work as hard, who isn't the same person? And I just had to give it a shot. Like, I could always go back. If you're dealing with stuff, you can always go back to where you are if you don't like what happens. But yeah, it's really scary. It's a scary thing to kind of mess with your brain chemicals. It's an experiment. Just kind of getting those people, what helped for me is to find a couple people who I told, like, if I'm not myself anymore, if I'm not someone that I would like to be, please let me know. And as it turned out, I like myself more. Like, at this point, I'm still really productive, and people still hang out with me, so that's a good sign. All right, Stan State. Are the days that people stay clear of you when you are are there days when people stay clear of you when you're depressed? Yeah, totally. And that sucks, but I understand that is maybe their own self-preservation, maybe that's their own fears. There's a lot of things that can be going on there, and just kind of respecting that. This sounds weird, but their life isn't about you. There's a lot of times, especially when I'm in that weird state, that I'll run into people and they'll seem angry, and my brain says they're angry at you and they don't like you, and this is whatever. The truth is that we're all dealing with our own stuff, whether it's a chronic mental illness, whether it's a sickness, maybe it's an interpersonal thing, maybe it's a family thing, maybe it's work. And our issues ourselves are never as important to other people as they are to ourselves. And when I say, like, their life isn't about you, or they don't really, it's not about you, that's not something saying like, oh, it's not all about you, but it's something I tell myself, that I am just a part of their day, and they're just a part of mine, and to respect whatever they're going through. Prasadev, what makes academia a hotspot for mental health issues, and what can everyone in universities do to make things better? These are both really awesome. So what's the hotspot? I think there's a couple things going on. One, if we look at what makes people feel fulfilled in their work, it's usually the feeling of upward progress, it's a feeling of hope, it's a feeling of understanding the expectations and being able to meet them, the feeling of having another job after this, and these are all things that academia really doesn't provide. And it's funny to me that as scientists we believe in looking at data and critically evaluating kind of assumptions, and we don't do that very often with how the system works. We don't look at human psychology and think, what would make people feel fulfilled? What makes people anxious? What makes people have a really hard time? And address those. And we also don't look at it and say, we know from science, we know from social science, from psychology, that people are not as productive when they're dealing with these things. How can we change that? And how can we invest more time and money here with the understanding that we will get that back in spades, or get that back tenfold in the long run? What we can do to make it better is provide that space to talk about these things, provide support, provide health support the same way we do with mental or with physical health, where, if I had asthma that was chronic, I would expect that my school would help me pay for it. If I had a respiratory flu, I would expect them to help me deal with it. So whether it's a chronic or an acute, like a small time thing, mental health disturbance, I think that's really important. I think that we need to have it be very clear where people go to get help. I don't think everyone should go to their advisor. I think there's a lot of people who are going to make it worse. I think every single person should go to someone, whether that's a trained mental health professional, maybe it's a religious leader, maybe it's just someone you really trust, but everyone should talk to someone when they're having a hard time, because there are so many people around you that really want to help, that will feel fulfilled if they get to help you. But why is it a hotspot? So there's these issues, right? That's not very conducive environment to support mental health. At the same time, for me at least, I've had issues with my mental health. There's a lot of people who I talk to who oftentimes the stories we get over on PhD Balance are not grad school ruined my health. It was I had issues before, but grad school really brought it out. It's just kind of this pressure cooker where it brings everything to the surface. And at the same time, when the little voice in your head says you're never enough, you're never doing enough, people are disappointed, you're probably going to work really hard to be high achieving and land somewhere like grad school, med school, farm school, or whatever path it takes you. So, and thank you all for all the waves. It's really cool to see that there's a bunch of people out there kind of hanging out with us, seeing this second half in the video. I'm going to quick talk a little bit about my science because that got cut off in the first video. Really sorry, Addictive Brain. Y'all are working so hard to make this an awesome platform, and it's a bummer that we lost half of that. So my actual science revolves around something called the microbiome. If you're familiar, it's the different bacteria and microbes, fungi, single-celled eukaryotes, all of these different things that live in one niche, that are living together. Niche being like a small space that includes both the kind of chemical resources, the physical space, all of that. And if I say probiotics, or even if I talk about yogurt, you might think about that they're going to help your health. That these are live bacteria that are actually going to go into your body and help you be more stabilized, help you take up nutrients, help you fight off diseases. And I study that sort of same probiotic approach, but in plants. Plants take up their nutrients, they fight off diseases, they have to collect water, all of these different things, but they mainly do all of this through their roots. And so I study the healthy microbiome of plant roots. I try to find bacteria that will help the plants grow, that will defend the plant against diseases, and figure out how we can create a better system for putting these bacteria on plant roots, for helping the crops grow, for producing more food. And I think this is really essential as the climate changes, as our earth is quickly being affected by climate change, and we have to think of more creative ways to approach these systems other than using potentially harmful or totally energy expensive fertilizers and pesticides that can really disturb the entire ecosystem. So we've got this question: is microbiome maybe an extension of immune systems? Your thoughts? Absolutely. I think that, through coevolution, which was a question on the last video about different organisms kind of keeping in pace with each other, trying to survive better, or not trying to survive better, but rather that natural selection will allow them to survive better if they have different behaviors and traits. That my capabilities as a unit, as a human, are not just defined by what genes and what processes I have, but also what capabilities my microbiome has. And they can help defend me, and we know that certain bacteria can help prime the immune system, or allow the immune system to realize what's healthy, what's healthy, what's helpful, and versus what is something that could make us sick. And the microbiome is essential for kind of training our body, kind of helping it figure out who's the bad guys. Lina, I'm currently studying animal physiology and neuroscience at a university, and I'm kind of lost. What job should I choose for my future? Great question. I think what has been really important for me is to get experience before I'm making those decisions. So whether that's taking an internship or taking a week to kind of shadow someone, or even just taking the time to reach out to people and ask for an informational interview. What does this mean? It means that you're basically interviewing them about their current job with the interest of possibly having that job in the future. This is not a job application. This is not a way to get your foot in the door necessarily and say, well, I'm a really good applicant. It's just a way, and if you do that, it can really break bridges. But it's a way to say, hey, I like what you're doing. I'm interested in what you're doing. Can you tell me more? And kind of make up a list of things that sound interesting, things that you like to do, even skills that you have, and try to figure out what kind of potential avenues would allow you to keep growing and allow you to use those skills in a way that you really like. So I would definitely say, get experience, get insight. Don't just listen to one person, and branch out outside of the people that you know. LinkedIn can be a great way to do this, even things like Twitter. Hello, I have a question about the mitochondrial function. It always reminds me of mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. I don't know why that's a meme, but it is. Shoot away. I've had some mitochondria work in the past, taken a lot of classes on stuff. It actually used to be a free living bacteria that ended up in a cell. and maybe a couple different times. It's so cool. Science is so cool. Anyone else out there right now who are just like, science is the awesomest thing in the world? Let me know in the comments. Head over to my own page and let me know what you're excited about, because I love science. Science is so cool. All right, bye, Circe. Go drink some coffee because it is early and coffee is life. Yeah, so, and again, this is the AMA. Feel free to ask any questions. I will answer as many as I can. Been talking about mental health, work-life balance, as well as my actual research. I'm a PhD candidate down in University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Been down here for about 5 years. I'm starting my 6th year. Am I starting my 6th year? I don't know. I've been here 5 years, so I'm starting my 6th year, and I am hoping to graduate between March and May of this year. I'm so excited. So, and hello to all the people who are joining. Feel free to ask away. I'm just chilling in my bedroom with my dogs who are laying on the bed. They are wanting me to go play with them, and I think I'm almost done here. Wow, what backs up regulating in apoptosis? Apoptosis, let's break that down. Apoptosis is when cells kind of, well, they pop, which is cool. It's in the name. But they, within their internal mechanism, decide to kind of self-destruct. And apoptosis can be important in things like immune systems, but also what's really cool is that it's involved in developmental biology, where as we're growing our limbs, the spaces between our fingers actually, those have cells and they start popping. They self-destruct. And what's so cool about all this is that it's pre-programmed, and it's all about like which genes or which genetic material are being expressed. So the cell has mechanisms to figure out, should we do this process? And if we do, we need to make the right components. And so a cell will start making the right components, and kind of carry forward with that. I think about it as like you've got a cookbook. Your cell has this cookbook, and you can, using materials that you already have or materials that you can get from outside, you can actually create a whole big range of things. And you can't do it all at once. Like, cells have limited energy, you have limited space in your kitchen, you have limited ingredients, but depending on what purpose you want to serve, you can make anything from, just sunny side up eggs to a 3-layer cake. Both require eggs, both require heat, but they are very different things. All right, life after the PhD, which I'm very excited to see you in a very short amount of time. I love that we all get to have these interactions on the internet, and that's how we originally found each other. And then so many of you, I'm getting the opportunities to meet in real life. Someone called it meat space, but MEAT space, so in the fleshy version. So who coined the term plamps, and why aren't you wearing your plamped shirt? Excellent question. So I termed the name plamps. I'm sure someone else has had this typo. It started as a typo. I have fat thumbs or something. I had a typo, and so then I decided to go with it, that I now call plants plamps. It's a really cool story. That's a really good story. that's the whole story. I really like to laugh at myself. I think if you can't laugh at yourself, you can't laugh at anyone else. And even then, mostly just laugh at yourself. We're all ridiculous. And why aren't I wearing my plamp shirt? Well, that's because I, this afternoon, am going to go work out, and I'm really excited for that. I may have slept in this, but I really like to do minimal effort with things that I'm not so worried about. So figured this was kind of informal. We wanted to keep it chatty, but at the next conferences, I'm going to, for sure, going to bring my plamped shirt. I am going to be going to San Diego for ComSciCon on Wednesday. It is Sunday. I need to do all of the things before that happens, and then on Saturday, I'm actually going over to Glasgow for a plant microbe conference, and I am just like the luckiest person in the world that I get to travel all over the world and talk about science, talk about mental health, and even have all of you kind of in my pocket to pull out and say, hey, let's talk about cool things. Let's get each other energized. Ishan75, please may I have your mail address? So I do have a P.O. box that I can definitely send you if you're looking to send actual physical mail. If not, you can send me an email. It's my handle is down there at the bottom, at Sussana L. Harris. If you just take Sussana L. Harris and say at gmail.com, that's my email address. I try to keep it consistent because there's a lot of things going on all the time. So feel free to shoot me an email or comment on some page of mine. I do have a hard time reading through all of the DMs. So if you comment on a post, it'll probably be the easiest way for us to have a conversation. But feel free, you can send me an email. I'll get back to you. I have been dreading looking at my email box ever since I've been traveling a bit. But anyone else, does anyone get like email box anxiety where you just avoid your email forever? I'm pulling up my phone to make sure I don't like hijack forever. Yeah, no, not, I'm just over my time. Technically I get like an extra amount of time. I don't extra get amount of time, but because the first video cut out and I feel really bad about it, but I'm just going to close out. If anyone else has any last questions, please feel free to put them on there. You can always go to my page. It's pinned at the bottom at Sussana L. Harris. That's on Twitter as well. I love talking with all of you. And would love your support in PhD Balance, the community that we've created to empower grad students to support both their professional and personal lives. I think it's so important to not just support scientists, but support the humans doing science. And we got one more question here. Postdoc versus industry for future. This is a good question because the answer is neither. Yeah, a lot of times we phrase it in that way of like, which route? And I'm like, what route? You know, we've got a lot of different options. I love science communication, would love to do that, would love to do that for a company actually, or companies being a consultant to talk between their research and development and their marketing teams where just making sure that the science they're selling is accurate. And also I love the community building stuff. I think it's so cool to meet with people who have these passions around the world and we can bring them together and do amazing things. I love that the Addictive Brain is doing all of this work to try to bring together people who love science and love talking about it. So I hope all of you continue being on Addictive Brain and continue talking about all this work. Keep sharing your work. Would love to hear more about yours. Feel free to tag me and stuff so I actually get a chance to see it. And yeah, so I think I'm going to sign off. But thank you all for joining me, and thank you. Good luck. Have fun in the conversation. I really did too. This was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate all of you joining me. Feel free to reach out and contact Sussana L. Harris, and I hope you all have a good day. Happy Sunday from where you are. So, all right. I think I can figure out how to end this. Bye.